Hello everyone, this is JB, aka the Colonialist. Welcome to the Colonial AntCast, your favorite podcast about Formicidae, the family of ants. And in today's episode, which is our very first podcast, joining me is...
I'm Hood from the channel Ants Hood.
I'm Alex from the channel Holleufer.
And I'm Jake from My Living World's Ants.
Since this is our first episode, you might not know exactly who we are. I'm sure you already follow us on our channels, but if you don't, I'm going to start with a little introduction.
So I'm Alex, and as I said before, I run the channel Holleufer, and I started ant keeping around 3 years ago. And I don't know how I really got into the hobby. I think I was just streamlining a little bit of YouTube when I just saw an Ants Canada video pop up and start watching some of his videos. And slowly I got into that this is a real hobby and started realizing that many people in the world keep ants. And then I just started keeping ants and recorded it from the second I got my first colony until today.
I'm not too dissimilar to you, to be fair. I got into ant keeping because I got bored of watching the Pimple Doctor on YouTube, and I've always had an interest in ants since I was a little wee boy. And I came across the Ant Canada channel. Now, you can say what you like about him, but he gets people involved in ants keeping, and he got me involved in ant keeping. I think a couple of years after watching him, I was out walking the dog, and it was a nuptial flight of the Lagius nigers, or nigers, whichever you pronounce it. Like I said, I can never pronounce words properly anyway. So I think I ran home, got some tubs, and then collected a couple of queens and went from there, to be fair.
Yeah, I was pretty much the same thing. I didn't really think that ants really existed before I really saw these queens just fly all over the place. And that's when I really started seeing that this hobby actually isn't just the ants, it is also the queens. And
yeah, big part, queens.
What about you, Jake?
I'd say, it was similar for me. Maybe when I was around 6 or 7, I started being interested in a lot of insects, and just in general, like starting to absolutely love animals. But then I noticed like there were always these tiny crawling ants in my garden, and I was thinking, where do they come from? And I just watched them disappear into the ground. I think, where are they going? And then I started reading some books or going on the internet and like finding out all this information, and suddenly realizing that there are thousands of them underground. And I just found this like so fascinating. And then I found out, there's like a queen that is responsible for all of it. And then I think I watched Bug's Life. I don't know if any of you remember that film.
Oh yeah,
I remember.
And I watched that, and that was the moment my interest just peaked, and I was like, wow, this is awesome. I absolutely love ants. And over the years I just learned more and more about them. And now I'm studying biology, and I'm hoping to work with ants in the future as well.
Myrmecologist. Ooh.
Yeah, hopefully.
So if you started like wondering what ants were when you were 6 to 7, when did you get your first colony then?
So I'd say probably actually not until around maybe 12 or 13. It was quite a long gap. It was a lot of learning and just not really knowing that ant keeping was actually a hobby until then, because it was similar for me. I started watching Ants Canada and I was like, wow, this is amazing. And he sparked a lot of people's interests. You can't deny him that.
Yeah, his channel certainly has some merits for that.
I started my channel back in 2017, but then I did take basically a 2-year break.
Back on it.
Well, this is probably where I'll be showing my age, because I started ant keeping in the land before time. There wasn't many books written on it. Literally, there was still. I used to keep a T-Rex as a pet at this point, but there was no such thing as mobile phones. There was no such thing as the internet. And believe me, I went to the library and tried to find every book I could on ants, and there was practically nothing in existence. So I started as a young boy with glass jam jars and filling them with dirt and putting queens into those jars and hoping that I'd have some success. And it was, I probably massacred about 100 billion queens this way, just as a young kid, not knowing. I experimented with sand didn't work out, sand and loam, that didn't work out. It just became bacteria filled and killed all my colonies. So then I started using dirt, but I didn't realize about how to make the dirt bioactive. So of course, again, the same problem, ammonia buildup killed my colonies. And for me, it was just a lot of trial and error. And it wasn't until a couple of years ago now that I realized that ant keeping was an actual hobby, and now you could just click on this wonderful thing that was invented called the internet, and you can buy ants from all over the world. So yeah, it's been quite a journey for me, quite a rocky journey in the beginning. And I wasn't the best kid. I was born in the 90s, so we used to melt plastic clips and drip that onto the ants and flood them with water and all these horrible things that you used to do as a kid in the 90s because you were stuck out in the garden with a stick.
I'm a bit concerned here.
We also did that when we were in the 2000s.
I mean, I'm a 90s kid just about, so yeah.
I feel like I'm the oldest one here now. That's terrible.
Yeah, I guess we should maybe show our ages. I don't know. I'm 20 at least.
Yeah, I'm 21.
34.
37.
Ah, not that bad. Guys, shut up. You're not old.
See, you was born with me then, before technology existed.
Yeah, man. I was born 99. I was born 99. I'm old. Everyone calls me old.
I remember the first mobile phone I ever had took a SIM card the size of a credit card.
I remember playing Lego Star Wars on a flip phone.
But saying that though, JB's so right. The internet's made it so accessible for obscure hobbies such as ours. I mean, let's be honest, our hobbies are not mainstream. And whenever I mention to people that I keep ants, they're like, "What?
Yeah,
what are you doing?"
That is the same reaction that I get.
Yeah. But, it's
great. You just looked at like a complete weirdo.
For its criticisms, brings ant keepers together.
It definitely does. I think it's a great platform for ant keeping. There are some times when it goes like out of line. You do get the scammers on there that find people, but generally I think it's just brilliant because there's no other platform apart from YouTube. YouTube isn't really like you can't interact the same way. You can interact with the YouTubers, but it's never the same as like Facebook, where people can actually give you all
directly
to you need, give you all the links to finding ants. It's just such a great platform, I think, for ant keeping.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly get a lot of enjoyment out of trawling through the groups and finding people that sort of need help or they have questions, and if I know the answer and I can help them and improve their experience, it's one of the things I love to do.
No, I enjoy doing that as well, to be fair, but I'll never claim to be the be-all and end-all of ant keeping, because the truth is...
Oh, no one is.
I'm not very knowledgeable.
We're all flawed in some way or another.
Yeah, definitely.
No one's perfect. I mean, even when you think you have ant keeping down, it's not happening.
Something happens and you think, oh.
I feel like I have no knowledge of ant keeping compared to some people.
I'd say I've learned a lot from my mistakes, and there's been quite a few over the year, especially with the amount of colonies that I have sadly lost this year.
I'm in the
that is
same
a part
boat
of
as
ant keeping. That's what we should talk about, because losing colonies is actually a part of ant keeping. I think it sounds
it's the hardest part, and it happens a lot more frequently than people realize. I mean, the amount of people who buy ants and then sort of a week to 2 weeks later they're just like, oh, my colony didn't make it, I don't know what to do. And it's kind of like sometimes even I think just the shipping of ants, sometimes I think like when the ants die within like 2-3 days, it's just from the stress of being shipped, especially if it's a colony that doesn't move. Like in the wild, there's certain species that will just take a nest and they will live and die in that nest, for better or for worse, whether it's a good location, a bad location. If it works out, great. If it doesn't, they kind of just go down with the ship.
Yeah, like for example, you've got other colonies such as Mammacarubra which have colony budding. So like if you were to send them in the post, that would almost do nothing to them because they're used to that process of possibly being moved to another nest.
Well, they're a roving species, so they'll either set up a network of nests, or they would just keep moving to different nests every 2-3 weeks.
I guess that's why we talk about like the ethical issues of like shipping ants. For example, whenever I've sent ants, I always send them trapped and signed next day, just because I want that stress to be reduced. But I know there are keepers who send their ants second class, and that's not really...
Sadly though, you can't always guarantee the service you'll get. I mean, I'm pretty sure that my local postie absolutely hates me because I get a lot of live insect packages, and every time they come, they look like they've been through World War One. They've been through an artillery barrage, they've probably been launched 10 miles over. People just don't treat them right. Even though it says live insects on the box, they almost go out of their way.
You're very right.
I ordered a colony not that long ago, And I exactly ordered this premium so they would arrive the next day, and that was a tropical species. So I really just sat there waiting for the colony to arrive.
Yeah.
And then it got stuck in tow.
Oh,
And I called them to ask like, can I do anything? And they was like, no, it's just some documents we're missing. It should come tomorrow. And I was sitting there thinking, they are not heated, they are not heated, they are not heated. So the next day I called them again as soon as they opened to talk with them. And it was just like, oh yeah, there's the documents we are waiting. And I was like, should I contact my seller, or who's at fault here? And it was just the UK post sending it to the Danish post. They hadn't lost the document, and I had to wait a whole week before I got my colony. Luckily they were fine, but I was just so scared that
at least
they had been in a cold environment.
At least they're okay. I mean, I guess that's
that's the most
outcome.
Some species are surprisingly resilient, and some queens, I just call them survivors, because even if they lose all their workers, there are some queens that just love life and they want to keep living.
And you just see them producing eggs again. You're like, wow, this was quick.
And they will forage as well, even if they're semi-claustral or something like that. There are certain queens that are just like, I will survive.
Yeah.
And there's other queens who are like, oh, look at my flourishing colony. It's time. I'm just gonna cop it now.
Yeah.
That's the worst.
But that, like, back to the original point though, that's the whole thing about ant keeping, isn't it? Is that like you, JB, I've lost a lot of colonies this year as well, and people need to realise that it's not, you've got a queen, you do everything right, and she's gonna flourish, and the colony's gonna grow, because it isn't. Not necessarily. Sorry.
You can
do everything right. Yeah, you can do everything right, have everything perfect, then for no apparent reason they die. Yeah. But that's,
that is a part of it, because there are lots of factors you can't take into, like, you got to take into account. For example, you know, not everyone might see that there are mites in their colony. They might not know what diseases this colony could already have when they've been shipped here, right? They could have not been fed for weeks before arriving, and that just causes them to die the moment they arrive, even if you try and feed them. There's also things like the fact that we're keeping them in captivity. Well, a lot of people would argue that that's wrong because it's not their natural environment. But then, you know, if you're a responsible, ethical ant keeper, you try and mimic that environment as well as you can. And in some cases, it's even better, because in the wild, this colony might get destroyed by, like, you know, heavy rain, a flood, or, you know,
in some ways you're protecting them, because they're very protected from predators and from threats and from other issues. You also have to take into factor the biological flaws of mass production, which sadly is not really spoken about. Queens are mass produced, and many of them do have biological flaws. Their hearts might not be formed properly, internal organs might not be formed properly, and they don't have the longevity that maybe the first few queens in the batch have.
So this was actually something I was talking to Laurent Keller about, a professor from
I saw the interview.
University.
That was cool, isn't it?
Yeah, so he was actually
I watched that myself this morning.
He was talking about that actually, and saying how, like, because I always thought that surely the longevity would be in a monogenous queen, because a single queen colony lives, you know, the queen lives a lot longer, whereas in a colony with multiple queens, you know, their lifespan doesn't need to be as long, because they can keep producing more queens.
Yeah, I find as well with certain species, obviously Myrmica tend to live for sort of 5 years, whereas they say you can keep Lasius alive for 28 to 30 years, but that's in lab conditions with everything completely and utterly perfect. And I don't know if you've seen the study on how they fed them, but they actually liquidized mealworms, and they fed them drops on that, so everything.
So they didn't even have to chew. They didn't waste energy like chewing it up.
Yeah, everything was absolutely.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Oh, but that really puts it into perspective.
Yeah,
I was always like, oh, I may have this colony for 30 years.
Yeah, no, you have it for maybe 10.
Yeah,
if you're lucky.
I mean, you never know. You might just have one of those survivor queens who will just go on forever. But you know,
I remember in the summer I was getting an ant colony, just the latest Niger. For some reason, I think it was in early March, May, pretty early on the year, and I just couldn't wait for nuptial flights. And I got my queen, and after 2 weeks, she just died out of mysterious reasons. She was laying on her back and like slowly dying. So I contacted the ant store, and I got a new colony, and they were completely fine with it. They were like, "You have video proof. We trust you." I got a new colony, and the exact same thing happened to that colony.
No way.
Yeah.
Wait, did you say ant store?
Same. Yeah. It was.
That
ant
has
store,
happened. That has happened to me with a queen. I bought a Camponotus barbaricus, and she never laid eggs, and it's been more than 6 months, maybe 8 months. She never laid eggs once.
No, I remember my scare with the Camponotus japonicus. The first queen I got didn't lay eggs for 4.5 months.
And they have a very slow development, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, that's why I ended up getting another colony from Ants Davy, actually. So I have one colony from Ants HQ and one colony from Ants Davy. And the first colony, they just didn't lay for ages. So I was a bit worried that they were going to fail. So I got the second colony from Ants Davy, and then both of them just completely took off. I mean, they've only got 30 workers each now, and they don't grow very large. But yeah, both of them took off after a while of not doing anything.
Unfortunately, my queen died, to be fair, the other week, and I've got one worker. She came with 4 workers, left her alone, fed them once a week, I think it was, to keep them undisturbed, but she just never laid. And now I've got just the one worker that I feed honey. It is what it is. I know they're quite difficult to get started because they're super sensitive, but it is what it is, isn't it, to be fair?
Yeah, but that's also the thing. You don't just... Most of us ant keepers don't want to just buy a huge colony. We want to get these founding colonies.
Yeah, that's true.
But that's when they are most exposed, so...
Yeah, and also it's the most interesting part, because you see the colony develop. Like, although it's a long waiting game, it's worth it. Like, just so worth it.
I never... When I'm looking for a new colony, I never just want to get one queen, because I'm always scared that fertile or something.
But that's like
I
me.
always want one worker at least to prove that it's a working colony.
Yeah, you always want that. I mean, I think, was it the Ants Canada GAN project?
Yeah.
That always stipulates that queens must be sold with their naniticks. And I think that's quite a good ethos to have.
Policy,
definitely. Your queens should come with their naniticks, because that first section, you don't know if she's fertile, and you can't tell until you've had your first worker, and if a male drone pops out, she's unfertilized.
Or even if the brood is about to turn into workers, you know that queen's going to have some support when it arrives.
Yeah.
Although there is a possibility of some people brood boosting, I mean, it doesn't happen that often, I'd say, when buying ants.
No, in my eyes, that would be a bad for business if you're taking brood from one colony to another colony.
But there are definitely people that do that.
Well, there was Leafcutter was all being sold brood boosted, wasn't it?
Really? I didn't hear about that.
Last year there was quite a few colonies that had been brood boosted that were being sold, from what I heard.
I didn't hear anything about that. It's news to me.
What would you guys say?
Were heard about that.
To be honest, I think brood boosting is quite a popular thing overseas. In America, for instance, if you're in any of the American Facebook groups for ant keeping, they constantly talk about brood boosting. I mean, they share brood with each other, and it's quite popular in their ant keeping.
It's because you have to understand that some species require brood boosting, like, slave maker ants.
Yeah.
They have to steal brood, and
that's one of the things I'm looking into at the moment. I'd like to keep.
It's very interesting, like
sanguinea.
It's really cool, and there are even some Formica species which take Lasius brood.
Sanguinea will take Lasius, but they don't prefer to take Lasius. They'll take a Formica species over Lasius, but if they can't find anything else, then they'll take Lasius.
For Formica, they get attacked by everybody. They're like the victims of the ant world.
I think Formica are the ones that do the attacking, especially if you look at some of the vast wars that they have in the woodlands.
I still hope one day.
Is referring to Formica fusca, right?
Yeah, Formica fusca.
They're just the slave ants.
Yeah.
Attacked by everyone.
But I've still yet to find an anthill, because I've travelled across quite a lot of the UK, and I'm still waiting for the day when I just find a giant mound and I'm like, wow.
I can safely say that if you go onto a military training area and you have to run across an open field, there will be thousands of anthills.
Yeah.
All Lages fluvias, I think they are, but you'll fall over them because it's just it's like a minefield of anthills to fall over and hurt your ankles.
Yeah, Salisbury Plain's filled with them as well.
Yeah, exactly.
I have this huge nest 2 or 3 kilometers away from me. Where I often take a look at that just to look at it. But it's
Do you
not
ever see the queens on top though? Because don't
never.
come out?
But in my eyes, it's not the big hill that's amazing to me.
Yeah.
Because I spot it and I walk over to it.
Yeah.
But almost like 15 to 20 meters all around it.
Yeah.
It's just pure ants.
So it's really
all
hard to
over the
even get
place.
to the mound.
Yeah, but if you have to go over and look at it, you're certainly gonna step on a lot of them. Because I was really careful, and at some point it got completely impossible. There were just ants all over the place. And even though I never had contact with the mound, when I drove home, my girlfriend said like, "Okay, you have an ant sitting on your ear and on your neck." They were just there to attack me, and I didn't even notice. And I just wanted to take a little look.
That was like this summer when I was filming the wild colonies, and I realized there was about 3 colonies around me. So you had Lasius Bruneus, Lasius Bruneus, where they had a massive trail. You had Myrmica rubra, and you had Lasius niger, all crossing each other's trails. Damn. So I'll be filming one of them, and then suddenly I'd realize I'm being stung because I'm in the middle of the Myrmica trail. So then I'll turn around and film the Myrmica because they remind me that they were there. And then next thing I know, I've got the Bruneus running all over my arm, and I'm like, which one do I film? There's too much excitement going on here.
I have a question that isn't really that relevant, but the Bruneus, Lasius Bruneus, are they just like a smaller Lasius niger colony? Because I have as far as I can I haven't read that much, but
are they a different color?
Smaller?
They're brown,
yeah,
sort of, brown and sort of jewel tones, so they're between sort of yellow and brown.
They're like a mix of Flavus and Lasius almost, but slightly different shape.
Yeah, slightly different. Well? No, they're about the same size as Lasius niger, but there's another one, Lasius emerginatus, which is a dual-colored Lasius, and it's smaller.
I would love to keep them. I had a local nest where I often look at them, and I kept seeing all the drones going around the nuptial days. I never saw one queen. I was so annoyed.
What, for Lasius emerginatus? Or...
Yeah, emerginatus. I saw the drones, and I was like, that can't be a queen. And every time I saw the drones, I never saw a queen. So I was like really Googling, is the queen just so small? But no, it was just the drones. But I never saw any queens. So that upset me quite a lot.
I found one Bruneus queen. So when I did the nuptial flights, one of the colonies turned out to be a Bruneus queen.
Oh. I'd say the species, the most
that's pretty cool.
I caught was what was it? It was a parasitic queen.
Umbratus? Or Phalangus thing?
It might have been Umbratus. I can't remember, but I know that I had 3 of them, and I couldn't find any brood or workers to give.
That's the worst.
The queens, so the parasitic queens obviously just died because they had nowhere to invade.
Yeah, I had like 5 Lasius niger colonies, and suddenly like founding Lasius niger colonies, and like a month later, the Umbratus queen started flying for some reason, and that was so perfect. But I was just sitting like, I can't kill the queen, so it was just such a dilemma. So I ended up taking the queen out, or like pushing her away from the brood, and then giving the brood to my Umbratus queen.
No, I get that. Trying to do it like,
and they just and the problem was the new queen just didn't want to.
Like, she didn't care about the brood.
Yeah, she took it, but she couldn't figure out how to enclose the worker. And I read about that online. That could be an issue. So I took another colony and separated the queen for the workers, and that went so smoothly. And then suddenly I have like 1 queen and 1 worker, and the next week I had 1 queen and 10 workers.
Nice. Wow.
And then the queen died. So, but then I just thought, well, can my old queen reach the workers? And she actually did that. So I have a queen that lost all of her workers. And
then she got them back. Oh, that's quite nice. It's like she thinks she's lost her colony. She's like, oh no, I've got to start again. And then she gets reintroduced.
Yeah.
Do I sound a bit morally wrong here then? When personally, if I was going to introduce a parasitic queen, I would do it in the natural way. Give her somewhere to bolt hold to, but let her have distant contact and let her sort her own life out, as it were, and let her do what she does naturally.
Do you mean as in just like if you had a colony and you had an outworld, place the queen in the outworld and let her find the colony?
And let it happen naturally. If she succeeds, she succeeds.
Right.
If she doesn't, I mean, I would do it that way if I was going to go about
I guess that's right.
That as well.
I think the only thing with that is that you're taking the risk of injury.
Yeah.
So,
it has to be an
obviously,
established colony.
the parasitic
Yeah, of course.
queen will fight the queen, and there's a possibility that if she's discovered at that point, that the
They
workers can turn
they kill
on her,
both of them.
or they can kill each other. Yeah.
Because that does
problem is
happen
also-
sometimes.
Since I didn't want to do that because I videotaped everything, and I have a YouTube video on the whole thing from how I initially introduced the workers or the brood and then the workers and recorded everything, and I just didn't want to record the fight, but I wanted to record the colony, so therefore I decided, I'm just gonna take the queen away and give some brood. Just
In
because.
all fairness, I have been looking at a parasitic colony as it is, but this is one that's already been introduced. It's on Antics webpage, where he's got, I can't remember, I think it's Pavement Ants and something else, I can't remember off the top of my head. But I'm looking at, I've been contemplating getting that.
There's a parasitic pavement ant.
Yeah,
I've heard about
this. It doesn't kill the queen. It doesn't kill
lives
the queen
with it.
and it takes over. It lives with them. So you've
I've seen that.
potentially two colonies, as it were.
Oh,
It
that's
seems
nice.
really
That's
interesting.
weird.
to be fair.
No, I have
Yeah,
heard
it's
about
weird.
this very recently. What is the species called?
Without looking it up, I couldn't tell you.
Okay.
But it's on Antics if you want to check it out. Is it Antics?
I think so.
Yeah, and antics. That's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah, check it out, guys. I mean,
Alright.
I can't do it at the moment because I'm using my iPad for this, so I can't look it up. But it's something. I think it's about £60, and I'm kind of really interested. They're hibernating at the moment.
Yeah.
He does a hibernation plan, which is cool, but I just haven't got the spare cash because I'm saving up now for. I won't lie. I want meat ants. I want meat ants.
meat ants.
I want them bad.
I'm replacing my colony of Iridomyrmex bricknelli, but I really want the Purpureus.
Yeah.
What would you guys say are like your funniest stories in ant keeping?
Just
since
to
you
go
started.
back on that parasitic. I'm just on the website now. It's
Yeah.
the Testaceous and host Tetramorium.
Oh.
So parasite Testaceous.
Never heard of that.
No, never heard of it either.
No.
Is it from
Oh, it's
Europe,
really weird.
or
Because they did the queen, every parasitic queen, until I stumbled across it, I always assumed took over the colony, killed the host queen, and then took over.
No, there's social parasitism where they
Yeah.
live off the other colony,
Yeah.
and then there's parasitism where they destroy the queen and
But
take
this is
over
different
the colony.
because they're actually coexisting with the current queen.
Yeah, apparently she's more dominant over the host colony, but she still allows her to breed, to reproduce, and she doesn't kill her. They work together.
That's a bit like Polyacus lambda-lions will take over a Camponotus nest and will found its colony using the Camponotus, but it won't kill the Camponotus queen, and then it will just leave and form its own colony when it's ready. But
That's
it
quite
basically
nice,
uses
'cause
them
it
as
doesn't-
that's
protection.
so weird.
It doesn't harm the
Yeah.
colony.
It's so amazing how all ant colonies work. It's so crazy in my head.
Like, they can just
if
be
you
so
actually go
different.
into the social evolution of ants and other creatures that they've evolved with to sort of live together and stuff like that, it's really fascinating stuff. It's one of the things that I'm sort of looking into on the episode that I'm doing for Planet Ants, on the interactions, the social interactions of ants. But I also wanted to throw in how they interact with sort of other creatures that they will sort of share nests with, or that will parasite off them. Like there's certain moths that will have their brood in an ant colony for the ants to protect and stuff.
There's a beetle called Passus favelli, which is like a parasitic beetle that lives with Pheidole phallodula. And it basically looks like it has the same colours and it looks quite like similar, but it just mimics the ant's pheromone, that species pheromones, and it just lives with them and eats.
And there's
they even feed it.
The ant cricket does that as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, the ant cricket. I saw that in Ants
Scientific.
Canada's video. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, the yellow crazy ant colony.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
that's
now,
so-
unfortunately, I have parasites, so I have mites again.
Really?
Yeah.
Let's just
And it
hope
was on
this
his
time he'll
Xbox
do the
One.
Hypoaspis Miles treatment.
But mass. rather
Yeah.
than-
But the thing is,
Nice.
though, is if you dumped in, I don't know, what's the size of his tank? If you probably put in sort of the equivalent of 250,000 Hypoaspis Miles, or Simitus, whatever they're called now, they would take care of that infestation within a matter of a month.
Okay, I have no idea what that you said was. What is that, like a mite killer?
It's a predatory mite. So if you have phoretic mites, which are basically what feed off the blood of your ants, the predator mite goes in and picks them off, but it doesn't actually kill the mite. So it's like 10 to 15 days that the mite is phoretic. So it's only through a certain part of its process that it will be attached to your ant and feeding off the ant. But what the Hypoaspis males does is it eats all its brood. So the last generation you have will be the generation that will die off, and it will stop them from being able to reproduce, which is how they work.
So, like, some of them will stay, a lot of the mites will stay on those workers until they die. But because the colony is so big, you know, that last generation of mites is on that generation of workers. So when those workers die off, technically there's no more mites.
Yeah, and it will stop them from reproducing because it will pick off all its young the moment they come off the lay.
Yeah, it's quite a smart system.
Yeah, the only thing is they'll pick off all your springtails at the same time. They do the same thing to the springtails.
You have to add in more bioactive. Yeah.
So Jake, you talked a little bit about funny stories before.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, what funny stories do you guys have from like your early days of ant keeping? Because that's when all the funniest things usually happen.
I have a quite funny story. I have told it a little bit before, but it's always a funny story. I was a pretty newbie ant keeper, and I wanted to buy a Lasius niger colony from Ant Store and a starter kit. So I went on to Ant Store, and they had this really cool 2-in-1 starter kit. So it was both a nest with dirt and an outworld, and I bought that. And when I received the colony and the nest, I was like, oh damn, this is so cool. And I didn't really know what to do with the sand, so I just took it and put it all in the outworld, and I never really figured out what the holes in the back were for. And like 1 year or 2 years later, I sat there thinking the sand was supposed to be the nest part, and the outworld didn't have any sand. And I don't know, no one ever said anything. I did like my very poor phone videos on them, but that's definitely the funny story I have looking back at it, at least, because I was just like, now they have like 3 centimeters of sand in the outworld. Why? I don't quite get it. And yeah,
it's easily done in the beginning.
Yeah, so that's definitely one of, if not my weirdest / funny story.
I think my most challenging stories are simply trying to put together the Chinese manufactured nests that don't come with instructions.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
I did a video on that because it is literally guess and hope for the best.
Some nests are lucky where you have like sort of bolt holes which line up in the way that the nest is supposed to be. Like when I did my video on the nest that I think is good for messels, there's one bolt hole that's sort of offset. But if you line them all up, then you'll definitely have the nest in the right way.
Ish. And if you don't,
you'll certainly have to slot a few bits around,
and just hope there's no gaps.
Yeah.
But usually everything kind of clicks in, so you can tell if there's.
So I have a question for all of us. Like, I've been keeping ants since, I don't know, mid 2018. When did all of you start? Like, we talked a little bit about age and whatnot, but with which year number did you guys start keeping ants in?
Probably 2013, 2014.
With your first like successful or semi-successful?
I'd say I probably wasn't successful until around 2015, maybe 2016, probably for my most successful ones, because I kept leafcutters.
For a starter colony?
No, not for a starter colony, but after a year or two of, maybe 2 years of ant keeping. But my first successful colony was probably Myrmica from 1 queen to 100 workers. That was one of my first colonies. And I had a few queens, Lassis flavus. Campanotus nicobarensis, that was quite successful. They reached about 50 workers.
Okay, what about you? Like, when was the first year?
Yeah, I think I'm about the same as you. I think I'm looking at around 2017, 18. I couldn't tell you exactly, but it would have been the summer because I collected Lasius niger queens, as I said in my story earlier, to be fair, and that's where I started from. And I started collecting exotic species, as it were, which is another topic for another day about that one. Because they hibernated at winter and all the fun had gone. So I was like, well, what am I supposed to do now? So that's when I started looking at exotic species, started with Fidoles, which was just a car crash for me. Just a car crash.
I think all Fidoli are a car crash for me, to be honest. Every
Yeah.
colony I've had has suffered a colony crash now. 5 colonies so far.
I've had 3 colonies. I tried Fidolia, Latin, can't do it.
Fidoli Falladula, maybe?
Falladula, that's it, yeah.
Yeah.
When I first started ant keeping, that was the first species I got, and like I said, it was a collection of everything you can do wrong, you do it wrong, and I did it wrong. So them dying was part of my own doing, to be fair. Then I left them for a while because I kind of got a bad taste in my mouth, thinking maybe I'm not cracked up to what I ought to be with ant keeping. And then I got them at the start of this year, 20 worker Queen Connolly, and as soon as I got the Queen, she was being weird as she was cutting around the little portal outworld thing I had for them.
Just a little interruption. This year means 2020, right?
No, 2020. Sorry, the start of the season, 2020. Yeah. Sorry, I'll keep forgetting New Year's after because Christmas just a write-off because of COVID.
I was thinking it was 2022 for some reason. So that shows where I've been living. Yeah,
exactly. So then I started again there, and the Queen just died, just one of those things, I guess. And but now I've got the Nodas, and like I said earlier, I think they're actually stabilised now. They had a crash when I first got them, but there's a big pile of brood. They seem to be increasing in numbers, so fingers crossed. I've got it with my Nodas, but Fidoles, to me, a bit of my Achilles heel. I've never
I'd agree for me
ever as much.
I've not failed as much as I have. I mean, it's 4 Paladula colonies and 1 Noda colony. And literally, every time I've moved them into an Etog nest, bang, the whole colony's just gone. Or the Queen just copped out. Like 2 of my Paladula queens moved in, everything seemed fine, and then looked in 3 days later and the Queen was just KIA.
Yeah. I've got a Fidoli Paladula colony at the moment, and there's no majors yet, so it's going to be quite exciting because they're in a test tube and there's only about 8-9 workers. It'll be exciting when I see the first major, because obviously they're a lot smaller than like Fidoli, Noda, and other big-headed ants, but they're still cool.
One of the things I love is when you see the first majors appear.
Oh, it's like great.
Seeing the first major in the Solenopsis geminata was that was a great feeling.
I can imagine. But like, imagine having Cobera diversa from a Queen. That would be amazing. Because you see the brood and you already know.
To be honest,
you already know.
The major
I'm not sure I'd want to found them. Looking at how my colonies just exploded, the Carabara Finis, it's just insane. I mean, when it comes, that's one thing I will say to people if they're thinking about getting Carabara, is really dig deep and think about the commitment of this species.
Yeah,
because you need to check yourself into the insane asylum and just have your
no, honestly, no, I get it about the escapes.
Insane, absolutely insane, and it is a high risk species to keep in that sense. If they escape, if they do take hold, the queens just pump out eggs like no one's business, and I think I may still possibly have all 4 queens alive in the colony. Yeah. So I only saw 1 move, so I genuinely don't know how many are left. But judging by the colony growth, there has to be more than 1 queen. If 1 queen can do that, then I'm lucky I don't have all 4. I don't know where they're at honestly until they move again and I get a glimpse at the queens, but it was the night that my son was born, so I had to shoot off to the hospital. And when I came back, I saw the last queen moving.
So we've talked a lot about like exotic species, and we're all from Europe, or I'm the only one not from UK. so I'm thinking like, what are you guys like favorite native species? Because we're talking a lot about Fidoli, Noda, and all of these like exotic species. But what's your favorite native species?
I'd say definitely.
Mine's. Oh, sorry.
Go on.
Most fun species is got to be my Lagus nigers. I mean, I just think they're a barrel of laughs. They're like petulant children that are always up to mischief for me. Doesn't matter what I'm doing with them. There's something going on with them. I have got quite a few colonies of them, to be fair, but I find them really interesting. But to tell you the truth, I think my personally most interesting species for natives, it's got to be the Formica fusca. I've only got a foundation queen in a test tube still, but I'm just slightly obsessed with her. I really am.
I love the way that Formica fusca look, to be honest. They're a beautiful species of ant.
I also
I hope she does well. I mean, she's only got 4 workers, I think, and she's hibernating at the moment. And I hope that in the new season she does really well, because to tell you the truth, I think she's gorgeous, to be fair. I think that the workers look gorgeous as well. And I've got a great bit of footage of the queen pulling one of the workers out of a cocoon as well, a pupae as well, which I think I might put it on my Instagram page. Check it out. You can see her. It looks like she's ragging it about and she's eating it, but she's not. She's taking it out of the cocoon. And I just think they're awesome. But yeah, I've never kept a successful colony yet.
I'd agree completely, though I have never kept a Formica fusca. I've observed them so much, and I waited for them to have the nuptial flight. I never saw any queens, but I just looked every day, because there's such there are 3 like stripes, silver stripes on. Just, really beautiful.
I remember when I was a kid.
Kept them.
No, go on.
Oh no, sorry.
I was saying, I remember when I was a kid, and this was before I knew about different ant species. And I'd always been familiar with Lasius niger. I had a very large colony in my garden, which sort of kept my hobby going. And I remember I travelled and I saw Formica fusca for the first time. And I remember looking at it going, that is one big ant. Yeah. And I was thinking it was Lasius niger. Someone had been feeding them steroids as a kid. I was like, how do I get these ones? Why don't I have these big ones in my garden? And for me, like, I think that's where my love of Formica came in. I love Formica, and I think Myrmica as well. So if you're going for native species, those are my 2 favorite. But I do get a kick out of the insane side of ant keeping. I'm not one of these people that wants a colony that won't keep me on my toes.
I think we can all agree though with Formica fusca there, because like even for me, it was very recent when I saw them in the wild, because I was in this woods I went to this woods near where I live, which I'd never been to before, and it's absolutely massive. And I was just exploring. I was thinking, I hope I can find something more than Myrmica rubra or Lasius niger. And then I came across like a Formica fusca colony as well. I saw like one of the workers, and I was like, oh my god, this literally what you said. I had the exact same expression. This is a big ant. And then I found the colony, and it was just amazing seeing like such big ants in the wild, because obviously at that point I'd only kept a lot of exotic ants as well, so I hadn't really seen bigger wild species.
I've only seen them in the wild once, and I was in a military training area, believe it or not, down south somewhere, and I can't think for the life of me where it was, but I seen a Formica fusca, and they were being raided by slave makers, and unfortunately in the situation I was DS-ing, so I didn't get the chance to sit down and watch what was going on. It was just like, wow, this is going on, I want to watch it, but I've got work to do. So it was one of those ones, but it was really, I didn't get what was going on at first, and then once I comprehended what was going on, it was so interesting to watch. So interesting. But like I said, it is what it is. And I also must say, I do kind of really love the look of the Formica rufibarbis as well. I think they're really cool too.
Yeah, I remember when I was training in Sennybridge, I actually went down into the prone position, and it's while we were doing our training exercise, and I actually got swarmed by a Myrmica rubra colony. Absolutely swarmed by them, and there was nothing I could do. And I remember I was just trying to take the pain, and there was just a baby frog sitting on a blade of grass. And I kind of, while I'm being stung, I just zoned out, staring at this frog going, I can't move, there's nothing I can do. We're waiting to do a snap ambush. I can't start screaming that I'm being stung by ants.
Committed to the cause, mate.
Pretty much.
It's so weird for me hearing how much you talk about Myrmica rubra. Like I've seen one worker in my entire like ant life.
Wow.
Yeah, I've seen 1 or 2 workers. And I got a picture of one of them, and pretty quickly through Instagram they were identified, and I never found the nest.
Wow.
But so like you keep talking about them, like they're all over the place.
I've seen them like everywhere. In fact,
I think if it wasn't Formica, it's filled with Myrmica, certainly.
If it wasn't Formica for me, like my favorite native would definitely be Myrmica rubra.
Yeah.
I think that's just because I've kept them I've kept them for so many years, and they've always been like a stable, strong ant. That I like that they have a slightly more aggressive approach to keeping the colony alive, and I just found that really interesting.
Yeah. I think they've got some very interesting sort of behavioral traits in Myrmica species. They're good to observe.
Like, especially when you watch like all the queens. I don't know, when you have a patch test tube with brood and queens, and you can just see them, like, it's just amazing.
Yeah.
So guys, I think my favorite species that I'd really want is currently what's it called? Leafcutter ants.
Really?
Because I've been expecting them for so long, and I have a setup ready, and due to COVID.
I watched your video of you doing your setup, by the way.
Yeah, I watched that too. It was really good.
And it's been ready and it's been tested, and I'm just ready to receive them and putting cup on top of the mushroom, or not the fungus.
Yeah.
Due to COVID, it's just been delayed so much, so I don't know when they're arriving right now. But like, do you guys have any like queens or colonies you really want? Dream species.
I think I am literally the anti-mon master. I want all 12,500 known species plus the 22,000 unknown species.
Yeah, that's a good answer.
I want to have them all if I could. My absolute ultimate world dream would be to open up an ant zoo and just display every possible species going. I'd love it.
And imagine you could have like so many the displays would just be awesome, because you could have so many colonies in one building that it would actually be a zoo.
Yeah, I'd have leafcutter trails that go above your head,
that would be awesome.
Just on vines, you know what I mean? And
I'm gonna have that in my future house. I'm gonna.
Well, I tried to get the wife to agree to that one, because I said, because we've got such a big living room and I need quite a large area to roam, I wanted to get a rope suspended by fishing wire, because I can't climb up the fishing wire. Go out of the nest, round the living room, and then down into the other side of the living room where my drinks cabinet is, and then get all the leaves from there, then walk it all the way back. But it was a stout no. Don't even think about it.
My girlfriend was happy to
again
do that.
Ever.
Yeah, my missus said exactly the same thing when I said I'm going to be piping the colony around the house. She said, on whose life? I was like, well, we'll see. We'll see how that one goes, because at some point the acromimics are going to need to have a trail, because it's actually a health issue with the colony. So if they don't walk a certain distance, they become unhealthy.
It's like huskies.
Pretty much.
That's pretty clear. Like argument. Well, I need to do it.
Yeah,
I need to do it for the ants.
You will when they get big enough.
Oh, you don't want me to like make my ants have it bad? Then I need to have this.
I do. The thing is, I'll just wait till she goes shopping one day, and she'll come back, and there'll be all these pipes attached around the house, and she'll be like, "What's that?" And I'll be like, "No, watch, this is so cool," and I'll put it in. I mean, she actually, to be fair, she actually likes the leafcutter ants. She finds them quite interesting, watching them carry the leaves off and stuff. So. Yeah. I think the idea of it scares her, but once she sees it in motion, it'll be too late anyway. So
it's the same for my girlfriend.
As well,
she's scared of the ants, but she finds them interesting.
She keeps on getting stung by the Solenopsis at the moment. So she's not having a great time.
If my girlfriend got stung by one, I don't think she'd. She'd change her view.
We've had a few moments. Let's put it that way.
Well, I have to go away from time to time as well. My wife looks after my colonies for me, but most of mine are fairly easy to look after, to be fair. And I'm currently looking at designing nests that make low maintenance a key thing. So hopefully that pans out.
Speaking of nests, that's one thing I was going to say when we were talking about slaver species is, sadly, I find on the market there's nothing to accommodate slaver species, in the sense of you're always going to need donation species. So you're going to need a nest that you're able to take pupae out of. And there's nothing really on the market that's designed for harvesting pupae out of a nest. Yeah,
that's also what I was thinking when you said like over in America that they just give it to each other.
Well, no, sadly, what they do in America, which I think is pretty sad, is they have a tendency to dig up a wild colony, steal all its brood, and then they will donate the brood out to the captive colonies, which I personally don't agree with. It is quite a strong culture in there in the ant keeping and the American side of it for sure, because it's not common in Britain, and people here won't dig up a wild colony to do it. they will donate from their own captive species. Like I know a few people that have donated brood from their captive species, but we certainly don't go and dig up wild colonies. So
No.
So
I just don't agree with brood boosting anyway. To be fair, I mean that's just my perspective on things. I think it's for an ant keeper that loves all of his colonies. I don't want to see. This is one reason why I don't keep a parasitic queen. To be fair, as well.
Ethically, I think you have certain scenarios. Like say all your workers have died, your queen's alone. If someone can get you some brood in a pupae stage of the same species, that could save your queen. So
definitely.
There are pros and cons to it, but again, it's how do you remove the pupae without stressing out the donor colony or damaging the donor colony?
Well, and I've been thinking about that concept for a while, you see, and I think part of the issue with what you're suggesting, having an easy access to get the brood out, is it doesn't really matter how you design it. You're always going to get workers coming out and about and getting at you as well and getting out.
Of course, but if you've got a certain design where, like, say, if you can slide in doors and stop more workers from getting in. So say if you look at the brood chamber and there's maybe 6-7 workers in the brood chamber, you slide the door in so that you're only competing with the 6-7 workers. You can use like a fine. I nick my missus makeup kit all the time, so I've got her makeup brushes, and I sort of like.
What do you do at weekends? Doesn't concern us, matey.
I sort of brush the workers back so that they're not getting out using sort of makeup brushes, so I'm not damaging them because they're quite a soft tip brush. And then I think that would make it more manageable. Or if you had, like I said, with the test tube design that I spoke to you about before. Where you can lock it off and pull out the test tube, and then you can sort of, put the workers back into the outworld, and then you can empty out the brood as needed.
Yeah, I'm still thinking about that design, to be fair. I'm just perfecting what I'm working on at the moment first, and then I'll move on to that one, because I'm kind of curious how you could do that. And I think your sliding doors is probably a good idea of limiting the amount of workers in, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the that concept is in like Ants Australia nests, because they have the little plastic thing you can push down to cover the hole. So that concept does exist, but it's not very common.
Yeah, but even then, they normally have access doors, but there's nowhere to open up.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Brood. So even then, with the nest, you can lock off access from ants getting into certain parts, but you still can't get to the brood easily.
The problem is also for an ant store to make something like that. I don't think many wants to do that. There's definitely these people who wants to do that and wants to
If you think about it, every year, how many times do you see Formica sanguinea colonies going up for sale? So there are people who are keeping slaver species out there, and although it is quite a niche side of it, I think it will help those people when they need to brood boost those slaver colonies, or when they need to sort of transfer some brood. I mean, it is specialist. I do agree that it is specialist, but then you could say the same thing for leafcutter setups.
Yeah, I guess you can say the same thing for everything, but I just think for an ant store to already today the market is pretty pushed, so the prices are getting higher and higher, and the amount of money you get back from making these nests, I think it's getting pretty less and less, just due to the competition. So if you want to make something for very specific people, I don't think there's enough market. I think you should really keep your own species and then maybe design it and then sell it. But
it depends on the design. If you can make them to order, then you're not holding stock, so you're still making money. And in a way, if you was a shop, you would be expanding your profits, because you're actually going into a niche side of the market that's not catered for. So
yeah, it's true that.
It's definitely true. It's just that you have to do a lot of designing to something you can pull out and close and pull in again, and there's a lot of mechanisms that you just can't do with a 3D printer. I think
that is the thing. I mean,
it's not as difficult as you think it is, because obviously I'm using CAD designs to make the nests that I'm doing for my own personal use, by the way. It's not as difficult as you say it is, and JB's concept is fairly easy to do, to be able to achieve, to be honest, and I think I'd be able to do it. In fact, I'm pretty sure I'll be able to do it, and I'm pretty sure I'll be able to do it.
I mean, certainly, it's one of the reasons that I haven't kept a slaver species yet. Although I've been interested in keeping one for over a year, I haven't found something that I can successfully keep a donor colony in and access the brood to be able to give that brood to the slave-making species.
So I must say, is that a challenge accepted from a Hood?
That is, to be fair, but I am just, in fact, I was just thinking about it. I'm staring at my nest now, probably ready to test it out on my Camponotus nicobrensis. So I might be able to start working on it, the design concept anyway, fairly soon. I've just got some other bits and bobs that I want to finick around with, because I need to make an ant tower, a feeding tower, because in my Polyrhacus dive terrarium, woodlice are just stealing their food, constantly stealing their food, always at it, robbing their food. And you got Big Bob, who's a big orange woodlice, who just dominates the place. He walks around like he's carrying carpets.
You know, I completely agree with you, because like my Myrmica colony has quite a lot of woodlice, and they do steal so much of the food. It's really funny.
I always put in.
Yeah,
I always put in a separate feeding area for my isopods. My colonies,
it's got to the point. It's got to the point now where the Myrmica actually killed some of the woodlice just because they were taking too much food.
Have you guys seen that bug grub? Have you seen
grub?
Bug? Yeah, it's like a dry powder
Oh no.
bug grub. It's sold in sort of pets at home and stuff like that.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Oh, okay.
But, what I do is I put in some of that, and I put in some fish flakes.
Yeah.
And that's for the isopods. Now the isopods will go absolutely crazy for the fish flakes and the bug grub.
Interesting.
But the ants won't touch it. So what I normally do is I put in a sprinkle of that in one corner, and you just see the isopods heading over, because they're just like, well, dinner's just been served.
Yeah.
And then when I'm feeding the ant colonies, I sort of put their food over. You will find them polishing off the carcasses, but it's a good way to distract them, is if you get like fish flakes and bug grub and stuff like that the ants won't eat.
Well, I did kind of expect especially Polyrhacus being what they're like, to defend the food a bit more, but they're just not that interested in defending it.
My Polyrhacus will.
I think it's great when you see them feeding with the ants though. Like you just see them there next to the ants feeding. It's really cool.
It's funny. I've seen an ant chilling on top of one of the Parasitic leaves. Yeah. So the Parasitic leaves is like eating, and there's this ant on top of it just cleaning itself. But I didn't have any battery to film it.
Oh,
and the isopods just like stomping around with this ant just like literally sitting on top of it.
I've also got to do something about the springtails as well. I've designed the tower so I can put the feeding pots on, like the liquid feeders on top of it, because the springtails just get all over the honey pots, just everywhere. And the springtails have exploded in the population-wise, to be fair, in my terrarium, which is good because it shows it's bioactive and all that malarkeys, and which is good news. But I need to do something, because my Polyrhacus are just getting food robbed off from left, right, and Chelsea.
see, my Polyrhacus will pick up the Parasitic leaves and throw them. They actually throw them. Yeah, it's funny. They'll pick them up so the isopod goes into a ball. Yeah. And then they'll literally just lock them. Or they'll carry them off somewhere.
So they're basically like, playing basketball or something.
Yeah, I must admit, my Polyrhacus, they don't take any...
I've never seen that.
They don't take anything lightly.
So I know
your Polyrhacus is huge, though, mate. They're doing really, really well.
Yeah, I'm just really sad about losing the other queen, because I was really excited to do a breeding program with them. So
don't they interbreed anyway?
They do, but it's a real sort of grey area to understand. So some people say they will only breed within the colony if you have polygene colony. So if you have multiple queens, they'll breed. And then other people say you only need one queen and you'll end up with 100 queens, but it's not been studied in detail.
So what is the mechanism of this species? Do they have to mate regularly?
They do the same trick as the black crazy ants. So they will clone the queen, and then produce males with different genetics to be able to.
That's so cool.
But is that still through fertilization, or is that infertile?
Well, they already carry they already separate the genetics. So when the queen lays new queens, he's actually just laying clones of herself, and then the male workers are born with different genetics. So when they mate with the queen, they're basically mating with her clone, but they have the different genetics so that they're able to breed without interbreeding, so you don't have genetic issues.
That's really cool.
Once again, ants are amazing.
They are. I mean, even when you think you've learned it all, you will learn more. I mean,
for example, I did not know that. I genuinely didn't know that.
Yeah, one of the things I wanted to do with them is basically create, like Ants Canada did, where he had the 2 separate top pods where the late was supposed to go into, and then match. I was going to do the similar kind of thing with the Polyacus, but then one colony murdered the queen, so now they've merged.
So I was just going to ask you guys, like, I know as YouTubers we have to kind of keep our ideas relatively to ourselves until we release them. But like, if you were to say anything on this, what upcoming ideas or possibilities do you think you guys have?
I must say that I think it's quite sad in the YouTube culture on everyone being you're just worth your subscribers and not wanting to work with one another, and it's kind of like, hold on a second here, let's face it, if you look at it in reality, we're not competing for subscribers.
No, we're not, of course.
Someone who would subscribe to my channel might subscribe to your channel, probably subscribe to Ants Canada channel. Like, I don't get where people sort of feel like they're competing for the subs and that. I really
don't see that at all.
I would love to see a change in the community with ant keepers working together more like we are. Like
this podcast is such a great idea.
For people that keep a communal insect, I find it strange that we're not that communal with each other. Do you know what I mean?
I just started with my future plans. My first Holleufer ant show will be like being published this Sunday, and by the time that the podcast hits YouTube or wherever it is probably out already. And that's just a whole show where I'm just the host, and I'm just like 2 minutes with this and YouTube, or 2 minutes with this.
Oh, the
the thing. Yeah, you're in it. Yeah. But like I have so many like plans to do that. So just like a show to talk with different YouTubers, just like 2 minutes with this.
That's
YouTuber,
always been my goal. I mean, quite early on, I created that group and invited loads of
but you told me, JB, you said that who was it? Someone else had already like stolen the idea. They were in the group and they stole the idea and did it beforehand.
What idea?
Yeah, they set up the Let's Talk, but when I spoke to them, it was kind of like they had already had their idea going. Another YouTuber was doing the same thing. Then they saw the group that we was doing the same thing, so they just kind of went ahead with the Let's Talk Ants, which, you know, I'm like, as I said to them, I think it's an amazing idea. You know, I'd love to be a part of it, but I just found it funny. That's what I referred to before, where I said it's funny how people get so funny over the competition aspect of it, and I don't see the competition aspect of it, because I just think, you know, we're all in the same hobby. It's quite a niche hobby. You know, as content creators, why don't we just work together to give people better content? You know, we're not perfect, you know, so everyone has different ethos, different ideas, different morals, different ways of keeping ants, and we can all learn from each other, and everyone can learn from us. So I think working together is something I'd like to see more.
Yeah, well, we've worked together for a lot. Since I started my channel, we've been working together. So it's been just over 6 months now, to be fair. So we've always been quite close knit. But I see what you mean when you're coming from people want to hold their cards to the chest. But I've been very much a firm believer that ant keeping is a bit like dog handling. To be fair, nobody will ever agree on how to do something. There'll always be somebody that says, "No, do it this way. No, do it this way." So even though we might do the same topics, there'll always be a different spin on it. And I've never been too fussed about. I mean, I'll quite happily tell people what I've got planning, what I've got coming up, and stuff like that. I don't mind if people want to use that idea and do their own channels. Knock yourself out. I really don't care. I think it's again, it's what your motivation for your channel's got to be about, hasn't it? Because if your motivation is because I want to make money out of it, I want to get paid content, blah blah blah, then yes, you are going to be holding your cards close to your chest.
But you're also not going to get very far. Because
but if you're like
invested
me,
for just
that
money.
just wants to, I'm a hobbyist. I'm not an expert. I'm a hobbyist, and I just like I don't have my jobs. I don't have the opportunity to talk to people about it because they're quite macho jobs, as it were, and people aren't interested. So my outlet,
same in my career.
Exactly, same for me.
Exactly, my outlet for being a geek is about ants, is my YouTube channel, and that's always been my main aim. Now, if I can make my hobby pay for itself, so I don't spend X amount of money like I am, that would be awesome. But it's not my be all and end all.
Yeah, of course. I don't think people see the costs that go into it from a content creator aspect when you start buying when you start buying equipment, and obviously
Macro lenses.
like myself, I'm already looking at a £600 macro lens, which I'm going to get on a finance. So I'm going to pay X amount per month to be able to get this lens. But I think it'll be spot on when I have the quality of the ants on it. Thank you for joining us for the launch of the Colonial AntCast. Myself, JB, Hood, Alex, and Jake. Our podcast talking ants with each other and fellow enthusiasts. If you would like to join us as a guest, get in contact. We'll be meeting up twice a month to talk about your favorite subject, Formicidae, the family of ants. Catch us next time.
And bye-bye for now.
See you later.
I'm off to feed my ants.